The emergency room at the Naval Hospital in San Diego was especially chaotic that Tuesday night. Dr. Sarah Mitchell, with her 32 years of experience in emergency medicine, had already treated 3 severe trauma cases when the paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. Gunshot wound to the shoulder and possible internal trauma. Uncooperative patient, shouted one of the paramedics, his face red with frustration. Sarah approached quickly, her hands already gloved and ready to act. On the stretcher was a tall, muscular man, about 30 years old. Even wounded and pale, his eyes remained alert, constantly scanning the surroundings. She immediately recognized the signs. Military, probably from the Special Forces. "Sir, I'm Dr. Mitchell. I need to examine you now," she said in a firm but gentle voice. The man pressed his lips together into a thin line and turned his face away, refusing eye contact. His right arm, bloodied, was pressed against his body in a defensive posture. "He won't let anyone touch him," the paramedic explained, exasperated. "We found him in an alley near the base. Someone called anonymously. When we arrived, he was semi-conscious, but as soon as we tried to help, he became aggressive." Sarah looked at the patient again. There was something different about him. Something beyond the typical resilience of a wounded soldier. His eyes showed not only physical pain, there was fear, confusion, and an extreme vigilance that went beyond the norm. "Everyone, out," Sarah ordered suddenly. "Doctor, he's losing blood. We need—" I said all, now. Reluctantly, the team retreated. Sarah pulled a curtain around the stretcher, creating a bubble of privacy amidst the chaos of the emergency room. Then she did something none of her colleagues expected. She sat in the chair next to the stretcher, keeping her distance from the patient. "You're safe here," she said calmly. "No one will hurt you." The man finally looked at her, his dark brown eyes filled with distrust. "Where am I?" he asked, his voice hoarse. "Naval Hospital, San Diego. Emergency. You've been shot." "Who sent you?" The question surprised Sarah. "No one sent me. I'm the doctor on duty. You were brought in by the paramedics." "Lies." The man tried to get up but groaned in pain and fell back onto the stretcher. "You're all working together. I'm not going to—" "Whiskey 7-9er, Sarah disse suavemente." The man froze, his face, previously contorted with pain and distrust, suddenly changed to complete surprise. "What did you say?" Sarah leaned forward slightly. "Whiskey 7-9er. That's your unit code, isn't it? SEAL Team 3, Detachment Charlie." Tears welled up in the man's eyes. His breathing became irregular, not only from physical pain, but from a deep emotion that he was clearly struggling to contain. How do you know that?" Sarah took a deep breath. "Because my brother, Lieutenant David Mitchell, served in the same unit as you. He died in an operation in Kandahar 3 years ago." Recognition flashed across the patient's face like a bolt of lightning. "Mitchell, Dave Mitchell was your brother?" "Era. My God." The man closed his eyes and a tear rolled down his blood-stained face. "He saved my life. Dave pulled me out of a burning building. He took a bullet protecting me." Sarah felt the familiar tightness in her chest, but maintained her professional composure. "I know. I read the report. You're Petty Officer Jake Reeves, aren't you?" Jake nodded slowly. "How did you know I was like this?" "PTSD, confusion, paranoia." Sarah kept her voice gentle. "Because you're not the first SEAL I've treated who's returned from a traumatic mission, and because Dave told me about the security protocols, about how you're trained not to trust anyone in certain situations." Jake began to tremble, his adrenaline finally subsiding as reality started to set in. I can't really remember. I was on a mission. There was a target. And then everything got blurry. I woke up somewhere different. People were speaking languages I didn't understand. And then I was here, but I don't know how I got here." "You're exhibiting symptoms of post-traumatic dissociative episode," Sarah explained gently. "It's a neurological response to extreme trauma. Your brain is trying to protect you, but this is causing temporal and spatial confusion. You're safe now, Jake, but I need to treat this injury before you lose more blood." Jake looked at his shoulder for the first time, as if only now realizing the seriousness of his condition. Okay, but only you, nobody else. Just me, Sarah agreed. But I'll need to call an anesthesiologist eventually. The bullet needs to be surgically removed. No. Jake gripped her arm with his good hand, his fingers surprisingly strong despite the blood loss. No anesthesia. No sedation. I need to stay awake. If I pass out, I don't know where I'll wake up. I can't do this again. Sarah understood immediately. The anesthesia would take him back to that place of total vulnerability where he had no control. For someone in the midst of a dissociative episode of PTSD, that could be devastating. Okay, just local anesthesia. You'll feel some discomfort, but I'll narrate everything I'm doing. You stay in control. Is that all right? Jake nodded, his tears now falling freely. Why are you doing this? Why are you being so patient with me? Sarah began preparing her equipment, keeping all her movements deliberate and visible, because Dave told me about you, about what you do, what you sacrifice, and because when he died, it was men like you who ensured his body returned home. It was men like you who attended the funeral, who told me stories about him, who let me know he didn't die alone or forgotten. She paused, preparing the lidocaine injection. Because every patient who comes here deserves to be treated with dignity, especially those who have given so much for our in-country. I don't deserve this. You deserve it, Sarah interrupted firmly. Whatever is going through your head right now, whatever memories are haunting you, you deserve care and respect. Now I'm going to inject the local anesthetic. You're going to feel a sharp prick. She worked methodically, narrating each step. Jake squinted but didn't complain, even as she began to probe the wound. The bullet had passed through the shoulder muscle, but miraculously hadn't hit any major arteries. You were lucky, she murmured as she worked. 1 more centimeter to the right and you would have lost much more blood. It wasn't luck, Jake said through clenched teeth. It was Dave. I know it sounds insane, but I felt him pushing me. At that moment, when the gun went off, I felt a hand on my shoulder moving me. Sarah paused for a moment, her own emotions threatening to overflow. I don't think it's insane. Dave has always been protective. It makes sense that he would still be looking. After his siblings, she continued working silently for a moment, then Jake spoke again. The mission, we were somewhere I shouldn't talk about. Chasing a high-value target. Everything was going according to plan until it wasn't. There was an ambush, explosions. I saw things that... His voice faltered. You don't need to tell me now, Sarah said gently. Focus on breathing, deeply, in and out. Jake obeyed, his breathing becoming more regular. How do you deal with this? Losing. Dave, Sarah washed the wound carefully before answering. I didn't handle it well at first. I drank too much, worked too much, pushed people away. But then I realized Dave wouldn't have wanted that. He would have wanted me to live, to help people, to find meaning. So that's what I tried to do. Is that why you're here? At the Naval Hospital? Partially, but also because I understand you in a way that other doctors don't. I grew up listening to Dave's stories, understanding the mentality, the codes, the sense of brotherhood. When he died, I wanted to be where I could make a difference for people like him. You're making a difference, Jake said softly. If it were any other doctor today, I would have run away from here, or worse. Sarah began to suture the wound, her stitches precise and careful. What do you remember about being shot? Jake frowned, concentrating. I was running from something, or someone. I can't remember the faces clearly. Everything is blurry. I was in an alley. There were voices, and then pain, and then nothing until I woke up in the ambulance. You were found alone, without identification. Someone anonymously called 911. Do you have any idea who could have done this? No. Jake seemed genuinely confused. I shouldn't be here. I should be wherever my team is. Sarah finished suturing and began wrapping the shoulder with clean bandages. I'll need to run some tests. An X-ray, maybe an MRI, and we'll need to notify your unit. No, Jake sat up abruptly, ignoring the pain. "You can't do this, not yet." "Jake, please!" His eyes were wild again. "I don't know what happened. I don't know who to trust in my unit now. Someone knew where we would be. Someone betrayed us. Until I find out who, I can't go back." Sarah studied his face carefully. She recognized the real panic, the genuine paranoia. But there was something more. A sharp intelligence behind those eyes. A trained soldier still functioning in survival mode. "If there's a security investigation underway, hiding here could harm you," she warned. "There's no investigation. Not officially. Because officially, we weren't even there." Jake took a deep breath. "Dr. Mitchell, I need 24 hours. Just one day to clear my head, understand what happened, get in touch with the right people through the right channels. If you hand me over now, I could be putting my entire team at risk." Sarah bit her lip. She knew she was entering dangerous territory. Hiding a wounded soldier, especially one from Special Forces, could have serious consequences for her career. But she also trusted her instincts, and her instincts told her Jake was telling the truth. 24 hours, she finally agreed. "But you remain under my direct medical supervision. And if your condition worsens, or if I feel you are a danger to yourself or others, I will notify command immediately." "Understood. Understood. Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. You have no idea how much this means to you." "Just call me Sarah, and please don't make me regret it." She briefly left to get additional supplies and fill out false paperwork, listing Jake as an unidentified civilian while they awaited identification, a technical lie that bought her time. When she returned, Jake was sitting on the stretcher, staring at his hands. "There's blood under your fingernails that isn't yours," she observed. Jake looked down, surprised. "I fought with someone. I remember now. There were 2 men. In the alley. They weren't trying to help me, they were trying to take me. I fought. That must have been when I was shot. Trying to take you where? I don't know. But they weren't friends." Jake rubbed his face wearily. "Dr. M, Sarah, you have to understand. The kind of work we do, the enemies we make, they don't just give up. If someone wants me dead or captured, they're not going to stop just because I arrived at a hospital." A chill ran down Sarah's spine. "Do you think you're in danger?" "Here? I think anyone close to me could be in danger." Sarah considered this, then made a decision. "Come with me." "What?" "My shift ends in 2 hours. I can't officially keep you admitted without alerting command, but I can sign you off as a civilian patient who refused further treatment. You come to my house, I'll take care of you there, and you have 24 hours to figure out what to do." Jake stared at her, incredulous. "You barely know me. Why would you do this?" "Because Dave would have done the same for a brother in need. And because, frankly, you're not going to survive alone in these conditions. This injury needs to be monitored. You've lost blood, and your mental state is fragile. As a doctor, I can't in good conscience let you leave here unsupervised. What if I really am dangerous? What if I'm not who I say I am?" Sarah smiled weakly. "So I have a Glock 19 at home and extensive self-defense training, courtesy of an overprotective brother who insisted I learn to defend myself. But I don't think you're a threat to me, Jake. I think you're a good man in an impossible situation." Jake shook his head, almost laughing. "You're insane. You know that. My therapist would agree with you." For what seemed like an eternity, the two remained silent. Then Jake extended his good hand. "Deal. And Sarah, thank you for everything." Sarah squeezed her hand firmly. "Don't thank me yet. You still have to survive my awful breakfast." 2 hours later, after Sarah had forged enough paperwork to make any auditor weep, they were in her car, a modest Honda Civic that had seen better days. Jake was huddled in the passenger seat, using one of Sarah's oversized sweatshirts to cover his bandages. "Do you live far away?" he asked. 20 minutes, small apartment in Hillcrest. Nothing fancy, but it's safe and private." Jake looked in the rearview mirror for the 5th time in 2 minutes. Sarah noticed. "Is someone following us?" "No, not yet. But old habits die hard." They drove in silence for a few minutes before Sarah spoke again. "Can I ask a medical question?" "Of course." "The dissociative episodes. Did they begin immediately after the mission, or had they been occurring for some time? Jake hesitated. I've had flashes, nightmares for a few months, but nothing like this. Nothing this intense. It's like this mission has broken something inside me. Have you spoken to anyone about this? A military psychologist? And risk being removed from active duty? No, I just pushed it down, like we do. Sarah gripped the steering wheel. This doesn't work, Jake. Dave did the same thing, and I saw what it did to him. The nights he didn't sleep, the ways he isolated himself. Please, when this is over, seek proper help. If I survive this... When, Sarah corrected firmly. When you survive. They arrived at Sarah's apartment without incident. It was an older but well-maintained building, and her third-floor apartment was exactly as she had described. Small but cozy, with bookshelves full of medical books and framed family photographs. Jake stopped in front of a photo of Sarah and Dave, both smiling, Dave in his naval uniform. When was this? 6 months before he was deployed for his last mission. We had gone camping in Big Sur. He was so happy that day. Sarah's voice softened at the memory. He talked about you constantly, Jake said softly. His younger sister, the brilliant doctor who was saving lives while he was just shooting people, as he used to say. He was so proud of you. Sarah felt tears welling up. And he was my hero. He always was. She quickly composed herself, switching into medical mode. Okay, let's change that dressing and check for signs of infection. Then you need food, hydration, and rest. The guest room is yours. While she was working, Jake said, I need to get in touch with someone. Someone I trust outside of my immediate unit. Do you have a phone that can't be traced? Sarah went to a drawer and took out an old prepaid phone. I use it for emergencies. It's not registered in my name. Perfect. Jake typed a number from memory and waited. Ironbird? I'm Bravo 3. Yes, I know I'm offline. No, listen, something is very wrong. Yes, I'm safe for now. I need you to verify something for me through unofficial channels. Sarah gave him some privacy, going to the kitchen to prepare a simple soup. She could hear Jake speaking in a low voice, using military jargon that she only partially understood. When she returned with food, Jake was switching off. He seemed simultaneously relieved and more tense. Good news? She asked, handing him a bowl. Complex news. My contact confirmed there was an intelligence leak. Someone high up has been passing on information about SEAL operations. At least 3 missions have been compromised in the last 6 months. Mine was the most recent. Sarah sat down heavily. That's why you couldn't trust your unit. Exactly. I don't know how high up it goes. It could be someone in command. It could be an intelligence officer. It could be someone much higher up in the chain. Until we're sure, I'm vulnerable. And what about the men who tried to grab you in the alley? Probably hired. Mercenaries. Someone wants me alive for interrogation about what I know, or dead to silence me. It's still unclear which. Jake mechanically ate some of the soup. Sarah, I shouldn't have brought you here. It's too dangerous. Too late. I'm already inside. Sarah looked directly into his eyes. So what's the plan? My contact is working on the channels, but he needs time. At least 12 hours, possibly more. Until then, I remain a ghost. That's a ghost that needs antibiotics and proper medical monitoring, Sarah reminded him. That wound could quickly become infected if not properly cared for. Jake nodded, suddenly looking exhausted. The adrenaline that had kept him going was finally wearing off. When was the last time you got a proper night's sleep? Sarah asked. I don't know, days, weeks, everything gets mixed up. Guest room, now, you need to rest. What if someone comes? So I wake you up. But Jake, your body is in shock. You need to rest or you'll collapse. And I can't protect you if you're unconscious on my floor. Reluctantly, Jake agreed. Sarah helped him to the guest room, making sure he was comfortable before leaving. But she didn't close the door completely, keeping it ajar so she could hear him if he needed anything. She returned to the room, her mind racing. What had she gotten herself into? Hiding an injured SEAL, lying on medical reports, potentially obstructing a military investigation. The consequences could be devastating. But when she looked at Dave's picture again, she knew she had made the right choice. Dave would have done the same. And more than that, It was simply the right thing to do. Sarah spent the next few hours searching online, trying to find any news about recent military operations, intelligence leaks, or missing SEALs. There was nothing in the mainstream news, which made sense. Those operations were classified. She was about to fall asleep on the couch when she heard Jake yell. In seconds, she was in his room. Jake was sitting on the bed, sweating profusely, his eyes wild. "Nightmare," he said, his voice hoarse. "Sorry, you don't need to apologize." Sarah sat cautiously on the edge of the bed. "Do you want to talk about it?" Jake rubbed his face. "It was about the mission, but also about Dave. I was back in that building in Kandahar, and Dave was there, but this time I couldn't reach him. I saw him being hit repeatedly, and I was screaming, but no sound came out. Jake, I should have died that day, not him. He had you, he had family who cared. I have no one. It would have made more sense." Sarah felt anger rising within her. "No, don't say that. Dave made a choice. He saved you because that's what he did. He saved his brothers. For you. To think your life is worth less disrespects that sacrifice. But look at me now. Wounded, hunted, mentally destroyed. What kind of life did I save? A life that still has meaning and purpose." Sarah took his good hand. "You're going through hell right now, but you're going to get through this. And when you do, you're going to help others who are where you are now. You're going to make Dave's choice mean something." Jake looked at her with tears in his eyes. "How can you be so sure I'll get over it?" "Because Dave wouldn't save someone who gave up. He saw something in you that was worth saving, and I see it too." They sat in silence for a moment. Then Jake's phone rang. He answered it quickly. "Ironbird?" "Yes. Okay, I understand. I'll wait for your signal." He hung up and looked at Sarah. "They've identified the leak. It's a high-level intelligence officer who's being paid by a terrorist organization. There's an operation underway to arrest him, but until it's completed, I'm still in danger." "How long?" 6 more hours, maybe 8. Then I can come back." Sarah checked her watch. It was 3 in the morning. "Okay, a few more hours then. Do you think you can sleep a little longer?" Jake shook his head. "Not after that nightmare. But you should rest. You've been working for over 20 hours. I won't be able to sleep knowing you're here awake." Sarah had an idea. "Want some coffee? I make a terrible cup, but it's strong." Jake smiled weakly. "Terrible coffee. Sounds perfect." They went to the kitchen, and Sarah made coffee while Jake sat at the table. It was surreal, a civilian doctor and a wounded SEAL drinking bad coffee at 3 in the morning, hoping that assassins wouldn't show up at the door. "Tell me about Dave," Jake said suddenly. "Not the war stories. Tell me about who he was before he went into the military." Sarah smiled, the memories flowing. He was impossible, always getting into trouble as a child, climbing trees he shouldn't. Swimming in dangerous places, always had some kind of injury. Our mother would go crazy, but he was also incredibly kind. Once he brought home a stray dog that had a broken leg. He used all his allowance money to help pay for the vet. That sounds like Dave. He enlisted when he was 19. He said he wanted to do something meaningful, to protect people who couldn't protect themselves. Our mother cried for a week. But he was so determined, so sure of himself, and he was incredible at it. Every letter he sent, every phone call, he talked about his brothers, his team. "You were his second family." "We were," Jake confirmed softly, "and he was our brother in every sense except blood." They continued talking as the sun began to rise, sharing stories, memories, pain. And somewhere in that long night, Jake began to seem less haunted, more human again. At 8 o'clock in the morning, Jake's phone rang again. "It's time," he said after a brief conversation. "They caught the leak. My team is coming to pick me up. 20 minutes. Sarah felt a mixture of relief and worry. "Do they know where you are?" I gave them the address. "Sarah, I'm going to have to explain everything. About you helping me. About hiding this from command. You could face consequences." "I know. I'm ready. I'll do everything I can to protect her. I'll make it clear that I manipulated you, that you had no choice." "No," Sarah interrupted him firmly. "You're going to tell the truth. I made a conscious, A choice as a doctor and as a citizen. I believed you were in genuine danger and I acted accordingly. If there are consequences, I will face them." Jake looked at her with something bordering on admiration. "You're just as stubborn as your brother. It runs in the family." 20 minutes later, 3 black SUVs pulled up in front of the apartment. Men in civilian clothes but clearly military got out, moving with rehearsed precision. Jake tensed, but when one of them, an older man with grey hair, got in alone, he relaxed. "Commander Hendricks," Jake said as he opened the door. "Sub-Officer Reeves, I'm glad to see you alive." The commander looked at Sarah. "You must be Dr. Mitchell." "Yes, sir." "Lieutenant David Mitchell's sister." "Yes, sir." The commander studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "Your brother was one of the finest men who ever served under my command, and it seems courage and honor run in the family." He turned to Jake. "We have much to discuss, but first, we need to get him in for a proper medical checkup and debriefing." "Understood, sir. But first, Dr. Mitchell did nothing wrong. She acted with medical compassion and—" "I read the Iron Bird report," the commander interrupted. "I understand the situation. There will be questions, Doctor, and you will have to give official statements. But between us, you possibly saved the life of one of our best operators and helped expose a critical security breach. That will not be forgotten." Sarah felt the weight of the last 24 hours finally sinking in. "I only did what Dave would have done." "Exactly." The commander extended his hand. "Thank you, Dr. Mitchell. From the Navy, and personally." As Jake prepared to leave, he stopped at the door and looked at Sarah. "I'll be back. When all this calms down, I'll come back to thank you properly and to start that therapy you insist I need." Sarah smiled through her tears. "You're better. Dave would be proud of you. He would be proud of the 2 of us." And then he was gone, taken into a world of secrets and dangers she had only glimpsed. Sarah closed the door and slid across the floor, finally allowing emotional and physical exhaustion to overwhelm her. She had risked everything, her career, possibly her freedom, but she had done the right thing. She had honored Dave's memory, and she had saved a life worth saving. 3 months later, Sarah was in her office at the hospital when she received an unexpected visit. Jake Reeves, now looking healthy and dressed in jeans and a casual shirt, was standing in the doorway. "Hi," he said simply. "Hi." Sarah smiled. "Are you okay?" "I'm feeling better. Therapy, as prescribed by the best doctor I know." He entered the office. "I also brought something for you." He handed him an envelope. Inside was an official letter from the Navy Department, thanking him for his service and clearing any stain from his record. There was also a photo. Jake with his SEAL team, all smiling, healthy, and alive. "We wanted you to know," Jake explained, "that thanks to you we all got home. The leak was stopped, the threat eliminated, and I'm here, safe and sound because of you. You got here through your own strength. No, I came here because you saw something in me worth saving when I couldn't see it myself. You gave me hope when I had none." Sarah looked at the photo, then at Jake. "Dave would have loved this, to know that his death wasn't in vain, that you're okay. He knows," Jake said with conviction. "Wherever he is, he knows, and he's smiling." They stood silent for a moment, united by shared loss and shared survival. "So," Jake finally said, "about that terrible coffee?" Sarah laughed. "Still interested in risking your taste buds? Always. For good friends and new beginnings." And in that moment, surrounded by memories of a fallen hero but united by hope for the future, they found something precious, healing, friendship, and the certainty that sacrifice is never in vain when honored by those left behind. The code that changed everything wasn't just Whiskey 7, Niner. It was the code of honor, courage, and compassion that bound all good people together, civilians and military, living and dead. It was the code that said, no life is left behind, that every soul is worth saving. And Sarah Mitchell, daughter, sister, doctor, had lived that code perfectly. The Naval Hospital in San Diego was celebrating its founding anniversary with a special ceremony. Sarah was seated in the audience, wearing her impeccable white coat, when Commander Hendricks took to the podium. Today, he began, we want to recognize someone whose actions exemplify the best of military medicine and the American spirit. Dr. Sarah Mitchell not only saved the life of one of our best operators, but she did so with compassion, courage, and an unwavering commitment to the Hippocratic Oath. Sarah felt her face flush as all attention turned to her. She hadn't expected public recognition. Furthermore, the commander continued, Dr. Mitchell has established a new program at the hospital, the PTSD Veteran Support Program. This program offers specialized treatment and a safe environment for Special Forces service members dealing with psychological trauma. The audience applauded. Sarah glanced to the side and saw Jake sitting a few rows behind, smiling and applauding enthusiastically. Next to him were other members of SEAL Team 3, all there to support her. After the ceremony, Jake found her outside. You didn't tell me it would be today, she gently reprimanded him. We wanted it to be a surprise. Besides, half the team wanted to meet the legendary doctor who saved me. He gestured to his teammates. Sarah, these are the men Dave protected, the men he loved like brothers. One by one, they came forward. Each had a story about Dave, a memory they shared with Sarah. And in each story, she saw a piece of her brother, his bravery, his humor, his humanity. You know, one of them said, a man named Marcus with a scar across his cheek. Dave used to say that your sister was the strongest person he knew, that you had a different kind of courage than we did, the courage to heal instead of hurt, to create instead of destroy. Now I understand what he meant. Sarah felt tears burning. Did he really say that? Constantly. You were his pride and joy. Later that night, Sarah and Jake sat on the pier, watching the sunset over the Pacific Ocean. They had become close friends over the past year, united by shared trauma and mutual healing. You know what's strange, Jake said. I spent so much time trying not to think about that night, that moment when Dave saved me. But now with therapy, I can remember it without completely falling apart. That's the thing about trauma, Sarah replied. It's not about forgetting. It's about learning to carry the weight without letting it crush you. Do you still dream about him? Sometimes, but now they're mostly good dreams, happy memories. Sarah looked at the horizon. I think he would be happy with what we've done. The program is helping so many people. It's because of you. You took something awful and turned it into something meaningful. We did it. You're the co-founder, remember? You help facilitate support groups. You talk to newcomers who are afraid to seek help. You are living proof that recovery is possible. Jake was silent for a moment. Sometimes, I still think, why me? Why did I survive when so many others didn't? Because you still have work to do here. People to help, lives to touch. Sarah looked directly at him. And because Dave saw something special in you, he wouldn't save just anyone. He would save someone who would be worth the sacrifice. I try to be worthy of it every day. You already are. They sat in silent companionship, two survivors of different kinds of battles, united by loss and purpose. And as the sun set over the ocean, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Peace. Dave was gone, but his legacy lived on. In Jake, in all the men he had served with, in every veteran the support program helped, and most importantly, it lived on in Sarah, in her compassion, her courage, her refusal to give up even when it would have been easier. Whiskey 7-9er, she murmured softly. Jake looked at her, surprised. What did you say? The code. I was just thinking. It wasn't just what made. You trust me that night. It was a reminder that we all share something bigger than ourselves, a commitment to something worth fighting for. And it's something worth living for, Jake added. Yes, something worth living for. The sky darkened, the stars began to appear, and somewhere between the sky and the sea, Sarah felt her brother's presence, not as loss or pain, but as continuous love and unwavering purpose. Dave Mitchell had given his life to save his brothers. Sarah Mitchell had dedicated her life to honoring that sacrifice, And Jake Reeves had found a reason to live again. 3 lives intertwined by destiny, code, and courage. 3 stories of survival, sacrifice, and redemption. And a simple yet profound truth, that in the end, what saves us is not codes, protocols, or military training. What saves us is human connection, compassion, and the choice made repeatedly to see value in the life of another human being, even when they cannot see it in themselves. "Ready to go back?" Jake finally asked. "Ready." They walked back across the pier, 2 warriors of different kinds, bearing their scars but no longer defined by them. And behind them, the ocean continued its eternal movement, waves breaking, receding, returning. A reminder that even after the most devastating storms, life always finds a way to go on. End.